online people.
I ignore, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I moved a little bit. This is this on? It's for the internet.
It's for the internet, yeah.
Yeah.
A little light.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No problem. All right. Well, it's going to be a very intimate setting tonight with just a few people. All right. Thanks for coming. And I don't know, I mentioned you've been here before when I've talked about um, how I became into how I got into plant-based eating and lifestyle medicine. But my name, I should back up and say my name's Eric Colgrove, and I'm one of the physicians. I work at the Community Health Center of Lane County, and basically, I got into this through Charlie and Scott when I was working at. Can you? What's that? Oh, thought I heard something. Um, when I was working with Oregon Medical Group and I heard about we had advertised a few times in our group that there were these food as medicine uh, lectures that were going on and I thought, boy, that sounds really good because when I was in medical school, I had 0 hours of training in nutrition, and I would complain to the deans that at that time of the medical school. I'd complain that, how can I get out of medical school knowing less than my patients do about nutrition? So um, I always promised myself that I would have to teach myself, and I really got busy and I just didn't do it. So this I jumped on this chance to do this food as medicine. I had heard about it; they had been advertising it for a number of years, and I still was too busy. But then finally, I said, I think the pandemic came along, and I said, now we've got some time. I'm going to really take care of this. So I went to that, and just almost immediately, I was like, oh my God, this is what I've been missing all these years. And so I really thank Scott and Charlie for teaching me about lifestyle medicine, about food as medicine, because food is medicine, and it's amazing. So, and I what I learned was that the body has amazing resiliency powers that it'll heal itself when you give it the right conditions. You give it the right food, the right activity, the right sleep, the right stress reduction. Don't take a bunch of um, substances in your body, all that stuff. So that's all important. And and I think with any changes, I want people to make sure that they're um, passing this by their own medical provider before you start any change in yourself and your child's health. Um, there's not like tons and tons of pediatric data and studies out there, but we know that it's there's a lot that's very applicable. The a lot of we know about with lifestyle medicine is through adults, but we do have some pediatric data, just not as much of it. So I definitely want you to talk to your medical provider about things that you want to make changes to or that we talk about tonight. Not that I'm talking about anything controversial, except for maybe milk. I think well, we'll get into that at some point about cow's milk. Um, but just first and foremost is this idea that disease starts in childhood. It really there's so much of disease that we have. You think, okay, that's got to start when we're in our 60s and 70s and really it really starts in childhood. So many of our diseases that we don't think that it would start in childhood, but it does. And we first got an inkling of that. Oftentimes I'll show a video that talks about this idea of where did we first figure out that atherosclerosis and heart disease starts in childhood? It was really the autopsies that were done in the Korean War. You had a bunch of young people dying, and it was a good chance for the government to actually do autopsies on these fallen soldiers, and in through these autopsies, it was discovered that that a good majority, I think it was like 98% or something like that, of these soldiers that were around 20 years old, they had streaks of cholesterol in their aorta. You open up the aorta and you can see these fatty streaks up their aorta. And that was kind of shocking. It's like, oh my gosh, they already have heart disease starting at age in their 20s. And that inspired, and so that data came out eventually to the general public, and people got the idea, well, gee, we should really be looking for this at younger ages. And so some studies came out looking at autopsies in 10-year-olds, and looked at a number of 10-year-olds that had died, and were autopsied, and found that the vast majority of those were had the same kind of streaking. And then as technology got better, it became possible to look at younger and younger ages and even fetuses. And some of the most amazing studies in the past few years have come out about how um, there's a linkage between the mother's level of cholesterol and her her fetuses uh, cholesterol streaking already. So believe it or not, there is cholesterol streaking heart disease starting in fetuses. And so, um, and not only that, but that if mom had really high cholesterol, that you would see faster progression to atherosclerosis later in life. I don't know how long these studies were done over, but they also had noticed that as they followed these children, that the ones who had moms with higher levels of cholesterol, um, they actually had faster progression of their disease, that their atherosclerosis was really kicking in earlier and faster. So that's really one of the fascinating, the biggest kind of study that touches says, hey, our number one killer of Americans starts really in utero. Believe it or not, that's how powerful this saturated fat is, and that's where we get our heart disease, our cholesterol streaking is from the uh, the saturated fat. So we definitely want our pregnant mothers to not get too much saturated fat. They need some. We all need fat, but unhealthy fat and large amounts of it that we all see in the standard American diet is just unhealthy, not only for the mother but also ultimately for the child. So, but it's not just heart disease. The other diseases that start in childhood really are things like dementia, stroke, type 2 diabetes, arthritis, autoimmune disease, even some cancers start in childhood, not necessarily in fetuses, but in childhood. So it's really important that we take notice of these diseases, that they start early, and that you really have to start lifestyle management, that this really is a lifestyle. It doesn't start when you become an adult. It starts when you become alive. You should be taking care of your body, and you're a person who needs to um, be healthy and happy for 100 years. So to do that, you have got to really take care of it. Um, yeah, and so let me just see if you've got any questions or anything. You said that you have now is it your daughter that has a child? A 2-month old, yes. It's family member of family member of yours has this 2-month-old. And I mean, you think about, I mean, here we don't have a lot of people a lot of young mothers in this group here to ask a lot of questions about it, but it's something that everybody seems to have some connection with the child, right? Whether you're a parent, an uncle, aunt, a cousin, whatever it is, we all have some kind of connection to our children, and you can see how that child is growing, and if they're set up for a healthy life or not, really. Um, Come on in. We got a small intimate group tonight, so come up towards the front. Yeah. Um, so after 28 years of being a pediatrician, I think one thing that I realize is that picky eating is not only frustrating, but it really sets you up for a, a lifetime of being of the standard American diet, because it's really through this this poor nutrition and picky eating leading to poor nutrition is really where it kind of leads to um, all the problems that we're seeing. And you can get out of that spiral of poor eating, picky eating, poor eating, and standard American diet. But it's you do is a certain amount of damage, number one, to your body, but also it can be really hard. I mean, I know it seems like what I really see is fathers, the fathers who come to my clinic, they're they're the ones who aren't, they don't eat anything green, they don't eat vegetables. Um, and honest to God, I've got kids in my clinic who won't even eat fruit. I've got a whole bunch of kids who won't eat fruit, and it's just bizarre to me. I'm like, this is nature's candy. This is, we're talking about like a ripe mango, really delicious grapes or something. All these fruits. This is, I, I now, I don't crave those cheesecakes and that kind of stuff anymore. I crave the ripe fruit, the really good fruit. That's what I want for dessert. Even though I'm eating fruit throughout the day, I don't know how many servings of fruit and vegetables I get a day. We recommend to kids that they get 5 a day, but I think a lot of us who are practicing this are getting a lot more than that in a lot of plants. Yes. Yeah, yeah, they're in. Yeah, yeah, they're fruit. Yeah, persimmons is the question. I'm repeating it for the people online. Yeah, 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 they are good. There's a lot. I've yes, expensive, 2.49 per persimmon. Yeah.
$9 piece.
Really?
Ah, dollar piece of
Is they
Costco.
good ones?
They're Fuyu, Fuya, and they're firm. They're not the soft one. You slice them
Ah,
out,
yeah.
they're amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Huh, the 249 was at Natural Grocers.
Oh, okay. Yeah, natural grocers is kind of expensive, so. Yeah, I like natural grocers, but I don't shop there to save money. That's the only thing. Yeah. You shop there a lot?
That and Cabela's,
In Cabela's, yeah.
because I get a senior discount.
Okay.
I know that's a shock to you, but I keep getting a senior.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So, I think this idea of letting kids whine, not letting kids whine, cry, and they just want to give in to the whatever demands the child has, kind of shoots them in the foot. They start giving them, you might start off by innocently giving them a piece of candy at a young age or something, and then and then the child starts, and I think candy's fine, so it's not like you can never give your child candy, but I think there are certain processed foods. What I'm more mean is just processed foods. You're giving your child processed foods, and then they start getting in this habit of, oh my gosh, this processed food really ramped up my dopamine center. It really zinged my brain, and that sticks in that child's mind, and then they don't want the regular food. They want that processed food, and that's what that's kind of what gets this problem going. Wanting just the processed foods as opposed to real foods. Because what I tell people really that they their challenge should really be eating the same food that you're eating. Maybe not when they're 6 months, but in general, once they start eating table foods, really it should be done as a family, and uh, it should be yeah, it should be eating the same things, not making a meal for the child, a meal for this child or person, a meal for the father because he never learned how to eat real food either, and then the mom finally gets her meal. It shouldn't be like that. It should be just like this is the healthy food that our family all eats, and food should be eating time should be a time of connection. Should really be it should be a fun event. People shouldn't be talking about food so much, except for enjoying them. But it should be a time where basically you're sharing each other's enjoyment of each other and then getting nourishment at the same time. So social connection, nourishment, but also that soul kind of nourishment as well as nourishing your body. That process of eating really is starting at 6 months, right? So you're breastfeeding, and you have this incredible connection with breastfeeding automatically, but that connection needs to be transferred to the same. It needs to continue. I like the idea of babies breastfeeding for longer than 6 months. When 6 months is wonderful. Never look down on the fact that somebody had to stop at 6 months. But if that child can breastfeed until 2 years of age, they're going to be getting. Doesn't mean that they're not getting normal regular foods too. Of course they are, but you're sort of supplementing with this incredible food source, which is milk. And yeah. So, anyways, at 6 months, you're going from exclusively breastfeeding to starting to eat solid foods, and those solid foods. Some people will start before 6 months, and if you do start before 6 months, it really should be with a spoon and something that is very extremely mushy that can be taken very easily. Teeth have no consequence. You don't need teeth to eat actual food yourself. But when you're 6 months and you're sitting up and developmentally appropriate, you're developmentally normal child of 6 months, you can definitely start eating real foods. And there's a thing called baby-led weaning, where basically instead of having a parent shove a spoon in the child's mouth, you are giving a variety of foods that are soft that the child can grab onto. Typically they're finger shaped, so you can get like a piece of sweet potato. You can make a sweet potato, cook it real good, pull it off, cut it into slivers that they can grab onto, like a little finger shaped wedge they can eat. And these are not fried foods. These are actual sweet potatoes, not French fried. Yeah, and so then you can put out a couple things, and the child can decide whether they want a strawberry or whether they want a sweet potato or whatever. And you can let that child have some autonomy, because it's really for autonomy they build confidence in their eating, and they understand that when they're full,
oh my gosh, they can actually stop eating. They don't have to reach for that food anymore. Because if you got a spoon going in your face, you have a harder time pulling it away. You have a hard time stopping. You don't learn about your own satiety or fullness cues as well as you do when you're doing some baby-led weaning. Baby-led weaning being where the child actually uses their hand to feed themselves. And I think I'm not extreme on that. I just think that it's been done so much the other way, just using spoons. And I think a little bit of both, because oftentimes what kids also need is a good source of iron. And at 6 months of age, where you get your iron from, well, the best source of iron is from iron fortified cereals. And so those, of course, are cereals that are powder that you can put it breast milk in it, mix it around, make it a little mushy, and feed it with a spoon. And that's the easiest way to sort of start out feeding young babies. Yeah. So let's see.
Going back to that, but eating the same food as the parents.
Yeah.
In a lot of countries, when you say, like here in America, we have the children's menu at restaurants and stuff. Other countries are like, what is that? It's like, that's not even a thing. It's like they just eat a smaller portion of whatever the rest of the families eat. But they're
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And what is it on the children's menu? It's
Grilled cheese.
yes, grilled cheese, chicken nuggets, chicken tenders, macaroni and cheese. Things are very processed, very these are foods that are going to really stimulate the dopamine centers, going to be very fatty, very salty, very sugary. All the stuff is basically starting the kids on the standard American diet. And that is what we do. We get these kids hooked early on the standard American diet, and that's so unfortunate. Now we can get these kids, getting kids on vegetables, but the problem is still. What I think about the problem is how do we get these fathers? How do we get the fathers on vegetables? I still have yet to meet a father who eats vegetables. It seems like I kind of got it out. They do, but just I have a hard time finding fathers and mothers that eat vegetables. Weird. But yeah, really, kids shouldn't be eating processed foods in that first year of life too much. And really, hopefully at all. But and after 6 months, you're giving that child 3 meals and 2 snacks a day, typically. That corresponds pretty much to what the adults are eating in terms of 2 or 3 meals. Actually snacks so much as much, but kids will need the extra snacks, for the extra energy we're giving them. Yeah, I think the other thing is that I mentioned the cow milk. It's like sacrilegious to say, for a pediatrician to say, don't give your kids cow milk, but it's just there's so many reasons not to do cow milk. It's just 2/3 of the world are not doing milk anyways, but cow milk, it's a different species, it doesn't make sense. There's too much. It's basically growing a cow from a calf to a full-grown cow, and in 2 years, it's just rapidly growing their body cells, and you don't want to do that to a poor child. You want your child to grow, but not from all the things that are eaten in cow milk. So certainly the insulin-like growth factors in milk can be ways to grow cancer cells. And so even in young children, cancer happens in young kids, and even adult cancers, like I said, do possibly have that start at young ages. So I just really tell parents not to do with the cow's milk, even though over 100 years we've had all these messages banging over our heads that guys, to be healthy, you gotta drink cow's milk and to have healthier bones. But where the studies show that it does not protect these fractures at all, cow's milk. That places that drink a lot of cow's milk, like Northern Europe, where they do drink tons of cow's milk, they have more fractures. And so, yeah, it's there's nothing really beneficial from it. When you get from it, you definitely get some protein, you definitely get some vitamin D. We get iodine in the States because of the cleaning of the cow teats that they do with the betadine. But these are the things that you can get in a much healthier fashion. So, anyways, yeah. Any questions so far? Anything else? Anything you think about?
Eric,
Yeah.
did you wanna, you've seen the recent change from physician committee of responsible medicine about schools now being able to incorporate soy milk without a doctor prescription.
Wow.
Did
Yeah.
you see that?
Yeah.
It would be good to let people know that.
But that's on national change, right? That's is it?
It is, yeah.
Is a national?
So what they had to do is they had to concede on, was the government wanted to get whole milk back in
Yeah.
the schools.
Yeah.
And so PCRM, Physician Committee of Responsible Medicine, was happy about that, but in order to get the soy milk, that plant milk alternative in the school lunchroom at all schools, they had to concede to that. And so it used to be you had to have a doctor's note that your child had a disability to get plant milk or soy milk in the school.
Yeah.
Now, just with a simple note from the parent, they have to provide the soy milk. Schools.
Yeah.
But then they also have the whole milk option.
Oh, sure. I'm gonna get rid of that. But
Well, I was under the impression that sometimes for some people, soy milk is not good.
yeah, like what? What kind of times? Because really soy milk is the healthiest alternative.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like a soy allergy would be the whole time.
What's
Like
that?
if you had a soy allergy, that might be.
Yeah, that'd be the only time I'm thinking of. Yeah, soy allergy.
Yeah, there's a long-standing myth that soy in the Western world, that soy milk is not good for you and it'll mess up your estrogen or something.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not true.
Mm-hmm.
That's not true.
No.
Huh.
I mean, if you drank gallons and gallons and gallons of it every day, you could, some of those phytoestrogens, the plant estrogens, could have an effect on you, but it's not concerning in any kind of realistic sense. So, yeah, soy milk is where it's at so one of the nice things about soy milk is that they'll any of these plant milks, they definitely support that milk with extra supplement with B12 and often extra calcium and find other things in. So really it's a good source of those extra.
So is soy milk better than oat milk or almond milk or?
Yeah, soy milk is better than almond, especially for kids. We're thinking about almond milk being really so thin and really not having enough fat and protein. Really, there's not much in the way of any fat and protein in most of the almond milk, which is what some people want when they're drinking almond milk. But for kids, it's not really the young kids, especially not really ideal. Yeah, you want to get them something that has more fat. It's got more nutrients. It's got more fat, more, and kids definitely need extra fat. They're growing up a brain that requires a lot of fat. And so yeah.
So for adults, like with the diet that you all recommend, like what would be an okay amount of soy milk per day?
Well,
or does it look like calories?
yeah, some of it depends on its type of soy milk, because some of it is more naturally have more fat in it, but a lot of soy milks are skim, that they don't have too much fat in them. And so when I tell parents of kids to get soy milk, and tell them to get I call it the red label. It's usually the soap makes it. It's kind of a full fat soy milk, and so that may be a little different. If you're trying to cut down on fat, it might not be great to get sort of the full fat soy milk. But in general, as for adults, I don't want people to be drinking a lot of drinks that have calories in it anyways. You should be eating your calories, drinking water. So, yeah. But with kids, they do need an extra source of fat, and that can be a good source of extra fat.
Huh.
You can also give them some oils. So, as adults, we think we don't need a lot of oil, but there are several big sites that talk about using some oil, olive or flaxseed oils, or olive or flaxseed for kids. Yeah. Yeah, you guys heard that before?
But now, a little bit, not worried about, they get an extra oil. Then with your question with soy, Greg recommends no more than 3 to 5 servings of soy products a day. So whether that's soy milk, like he's saying, or tempeh, or tofu, or edamame, you shoot for about 3 to 5 servings.
So what's a serving?
So like a cup of soy milk would be a serving, like a half a cup of edamame would be a serving,
But then like
to a quarter cup of tofu, I think.
Charlie, I know, said on those Thursday things about the quarter cup of nuts, right? So if you can have more than a quarter cup of soy milk, then
Yeah. Yeah, nuts are
Different category.
another
Yeah.
category.
Because soy is a bean for legume.
So
Oh,
that's
that's
true.
true.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. All right. Let's see here. One of these, I think we're so, as a society, we're so, we don't want our kids to cry. And I lived on the Navajo reservation where it was really extreme, and there's different cultures that will do this extreme. I think Latin kid families do that more. I think different families do that more. And so as soon as the child cries, you stick a bottle or food in their mouth or something like that, and that sort of sets that child up to really soothe their being upset with foods, and I really try to fight that. It's hard when it's cultural, because you don't want to sort of go against people's cultures, but yeah, I think just in general, doesn't really matter what the culture is. It's just not a healthy thing. So I'll talk about that. All right, well, let's watch the video number 1, Ed, if you could pull that up on picky eaters. It's the American Academy of Pediatrics video on picky eaters. Well, yeah, pretty short video.
Would slow eaters be similar to picky eaters?
No, I think slow eaters are a different category than picky eaters. Yeah, slow eaters. I've been kind of a slow eater all my life, and I definitely know this. My wife was actually slower than me. I thought I was slow. Sorry, I'm very slow. Yeah, it really is. It's good. And let your body adjust to it,
And your system.
healthy foods is important for your children's growth and development, but it can be downright frustrating to get kids to eat a variety of foods. Here are some tips to help you handle picky eating. How can I help my picky eater explore new foods? Encouraging your toddler's sense of independence is a great way to make him more likely to try new foods. You can let him choose a healthy new food at the grocery store. Have him help prepare food in the kitchen. Let him feed himself and give him choices. Offer a healthy option you know he likes and another that's a new taste. Giving your toddler choices about what and how much he eats will make him feel like an independent little person. Things could get messy, but he'll be proud and excited to try something he helped choose or make.
He copies everything I do, so I make sure he sees me eat my veggies.
If she's not into a food, we just keep trying because she goes through phases with stuff. She's like, no, 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 yes.
We keep an eye on how much milk she drinks during the day. If she's had too much, she won't be hungry at mealtime.
What if my child refuses to eat? It's normal for kids to get upset sometimes during meals. If it feels frustrating, you're not alone. So many parents have been there. Here are some approaches you can try. If your child gets upset about food, try to stay calm. The best reaction is no reaction at all. Don't feel pressured to make a second meal. Tell her that this is the meal you've made for the family and she can eat it or not. Trust that if your child is truly hungry, she'll eat. If not, she can wait until the next meal, and that's okay. It's hard to stay firm and be patient, but it's worth it. By being consistent, you'll help your child become a healthy eater.
We try not to push her bargain. He gets more stubborn under pressure.
Her appetite varies from day to day, and she seems to know how much food she needs. So I try not to worry if she eats a little less or skips a meal.
Our pediatrician says it's my job as a parent to offer healthy meals and snacks, and it's my child's job to decide when and how much to eat.
It can take time and effort to get your children eating a variety of healthy foods, but your patience and calm through all the funny faces, messes, and tantrums will set them up for a lifetime of healthy eating. For more information about healthy habits for your children, visit www.healthychildren.org/growinghealthy.
The child's job to decide what is gonna be prepared. Really, that people don't understand that. And I think there's some other things I think about with picky eaters. You want to do as much as you can to shop with your child and to cook with you. Ideally, if you can grow the food, and if you have a garden and you grow the food, kids are so excited about growing the foods in their garden, and then be able to cook it with you, and it's just that's the way to do it. Getting that kid excited about it. So if the child really doesn't like spinach, you can tell them about how wonderful spinach is, teach them about that. And you can say, the best way, the most exciting way to really give this to your body is to put it in a shake, and you can try it that way. You can try things to put in, but I definitely don't recommend hiding food. I hear this a lot that, oh, but we hide this and that, and our child's getting some vegetables, but it's all hidden stuff. But it turns out it kind of backfires. You want your child to trust you that you're not sneaking things in there. So when you're making a shake and you say, well, let's go pick leaves, let's go pick these spinach leaves off our spinach garden, and you could decide how many leaves you want to do, and then they may say, okay, I just want only 2 leaves. I don't think that's going to be, and they realize it tastes great. And then maybe the next time as they understand how important things like plants are, like your greens, then they want to put more in and be stronger. This idea of what would Batman do? I'll use that analogy that is Batman going to eat the fries or the broccoli? And kids are going to say, oh no, I've asked this to kids. What would they choose? What would Batman choose? Well, Batman would choose the broccoli and not do the fries. And so you can kind of work on their own imaginations and what would be good for those people. You sort of have to use their psychology to let them come about the answers themselves and not force it on or hide it on them. So I also don't like the idea of extending mealtime, that no one gets up from the table until every drop is done from your plate. But if the child doesn't eat, you basically say, well, if you're not hungry, then we're going to leave the food here. We can cover it up or whatever, and then you can come back and get this a little bit later. You don't have to eat it all right now. In general, family mealtime is great, but then there comes a time where that child's not. If they're not going to eat it, they're not going to eat it. Definitely don't force food. I never will forget my my sister being force fed blueberries, and her throwing up the blueberries right. You're basically getting so upset right at the table and throwing up. And then she went through a period of about 30, 40 years where she did not eat blueberries. She had this reaction that, once that happened, when she was like probably about 5 or something, 4 or 5, she would not eat them again. But now she eats them. But yeah, it took 40 years. Wow. Yeah, she does. She likes them now.
All right. And I have a good video on growth and nutrient intakes for children that are raised on plant-based foods. So I wonder if Ed, you could play that video number 2.
Children.
Oh yeah, right. Yes.
Anybody else hear about the starving Armenians?
Oh yeah. For my generation, I think it's more just the starving Africans.
Yeah.
So
We didn't even know where Armenia was.
yeah. It's funny. My sister-in-law was Armenian. She grew up in Armenia.
Oh.
As I covered in my last video, the American Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics considers plant-based diets suitable for pregnancy, as well as during lactation, infancy, and childhood, when they are well planned. So what goes into planning a well-balanced plant-based diet for infants and kids? For infants, breast milk is the basis of nutrition, consisting not only of critical nutrients, but also immune-boosting compounds providing both short and long-term benefits. The World Health Organization recommends breastfeeding exclusively for the first 6 months of life and continuing with the introduction of complementary foods. What do we know about the breast milk composition of plant-based moms? Vegetarian and vegan mothers provide breast milk with comparable nutritional value, with a couple important caveats. In a direct comparison of breast milk from omnivore and vegetarian or vegan moms, the notable difference was lower DHA, the long-chain omega-3, in the milk from plant-based moms, due to their avoiding fish, which is probably a good thing given how contaminated the aquatic food chain is. Thankfully, ensuring proper supplementation with pollutant-free sources can bridge this gap, just like when there's proper supplementation with vitamin B12. So, provided that women are eating enough to cover their nutritional requirements and supplementing with DHA and vitamin B12, vegan moms can produce nutritionally similar milk. But what about case reports like this, where an infant on a vegan diet is failing to thrive? Or this: These case reports highlight the importance of good nutrition during this period of life of extremely rapid growth. By around 6 months of age, solid food should be introduced. By that age, breast milk or formula alone is not sufficient to meet the nutritional needs of infants. In the first case study, the infant was exclusively breastfed for 10 months and then was given a nutritionally insufficient rice-based drink. In the second case report, the infant did not receive vitamin D supplementation, which is recommended for all children in early life. Breast milk should be continued on demand until the child is at least 1 year old. Formula is also an option for women who cannot breastfeed. The Veg Plate Junior, a guide put together to help with dietary planning for plant-based kids, has a helpful visual and a more detailed table for infants who have started consuming complementary foods. And finally, as we've highlighted before, raw diets are not appropriate to meet the nutritional needs of infants and children. So what about nutrient status and growth in vegan children? First, caution must be applied to some populations defined as vegan, but who may follow diets that refuse supplementation. This is where you can get the impression for some experts that vegan diets are deficient and harmful. But the current literature suggests that plant-based diets using supplementation are likely to provide the recommended amounts of critical nutrients to allow normal progression of height and weight in children and can be beneficial. There is reason to assume that vegans today may be planning their diets more adequately than vegans in the past, as this way of eating has been adopted in the general population rather than existing solely in fringe groups. And, lucky for us, there is a new set of studies aimed at tackling this very question. What are the associations between the modern practice of vegetarian and vegan diets in children and adolescents and health? Enter the VEGgie study, the Vegetarian and Vegan Children study of German kids. For the 1 to 3-year-olds eating plant-based in the VEGgie study, how did their growth compare to their omnivorous peers? Overall, vegan, vegetarian, and omnivorous kids did not significantly differ. This is in line with other studies. 1 to 3-year-old veg kids tend to be slightly smaller and lighter, but within the normal range, or have no differences on average compared to omni kids. When the researchers assessed micronutrients and fatty acids, they noted special focus should be paid to critical nutrients like vitamin D, iodine, and DHA for all children, regardless of their diet, with extra attention on riboflavin, vitamin B12, calcium, and iron for veg kids. For a toddler, intake of riboflavin or vitamin B2 should be around 500 micrograms per day. The veg kids were short by about 40 to 70 micrograms. Luckily, there are an abundant variety of plant-based sources like nuts, legumes, and fortified plant-based milks. For example, if your toddler drinks a cup of fortified soy milk, they have already met the 500 microgram recommended intake. For calcium, great plant sources include dark green vegetables like kale, bok choy, and broccoli, tofu, almonds, and calcium-fortified non-dairy beverages like soy milk. What about the older veggie kids, aged 6 to 18? Although iron intake was low in the toddler group, it was higher in the older veg children, surpassing the omnivore kids. There was no elevated risk for iron deficiency in the veg kids. The higher intake of iron in the veg group may have helped compensate for the lower bioavailability of iron from plant foods. The kids in this group were also more likely to take supplements. Yet, in another recent study, this one of 5 to 10-year-old Polish kids with adequate reported iron intakes, about 8% had mild or moderate hemoglobin deficiency. Regardless of diet, about 3% of 1 to 2-year-olds in the United States have iron deficiency anemia. And given its consequences for young children, prevention is a top priority. For adolescent and young adult females, iron deficiency anemia is around 6%, and menstruation increases this risk. It's worth paying special attention to include iron-rich foods at most meals, and to give a little boost of iron absorption, combine with vitamin C-rich foods. What else did we learn about the older veggie kids? BMI did not differ across groups. They were a pretty healthy bunch. The plant-based kids have been veg for 4 to 5 years, and most vegan kids took supplements, in particular B12, as they absolutely should. Hopefully, the 12% who weren't were eating sufficient amounts of B12 fortified foods, as well as vitamin D. One way the groups did differ was that the vegan kids had significantly lower LDL cholesterol compared to the vegetarian and omnivorous kids. And given that atherosclerosis, our number one killer, starts in childhood, and dietary habits track into adulthood, plant-based diets in childhood could ultimately improve the cardiometabolic health of adults, as well as potentially help prevent obesity, which often persists into adulthood.
And it shows you basically lists all the different caloric needs based on your age and size, and what kind of how many servings of all these different types of foods you would need to be really healthy. Because what the American Academy of Pediatrics and the American Nutritional Society says is that you need to have a well-planned vegetarian or vegan meals for kids, so that anybody can really benefit from vegetarian and vegan meals. But you just have to have it well planned, because there are ways to get behind the eight ball on certain nutrients. You can get deficient, and so can just omnivores. Omnivores have horrible nutrient deficiencies, and but if you look at this Veg Plate Junior, it really does go through. It really shows you how many servings you should have of each of these servings of. I'm talking about like the typical important vegetarian food groups: the whole grains, legumes, seeds and nuts, fruits and vegetables. And so it'll kind of set out how much of each of these. It'll tell you in grams. It'll tell you exactly how much would be good for each meal. So really a very detailed way of people being able to figure out how to get these nutrients to their children. So I definitely recommend young mothers take a look at it. And it's not like you need to do that every time you eat, but it gives you an idea of what these meals should look like, meals and snacks. And also, yeah, the idea of having healthy vegetable fats and sources of omega-3s are really important. Kids, no matter what their dietary type is, they're not doing so good with DHA and EPA, these omega-3 fatty acids that are so important for the growing body, especially the growing brain. So I'll make sure that people are getting plenty of chia seeds and nuts and chia seeds, walnuts, and flax seeds. Yeah. What are you going to say, Charlie?
With the DHA issue for real young kids.
Yeah.
Because if you think about humanity
Yeah.
and us growing up throughout the ages,
Yeah.
where was there a source?
Yeah.
And why are we surviving as a species? That's the only thing that I'm
Wondering about.
struggling with.
Yeah.
Is that really a necessary component? Aren't the kids able to make it on their own or get enough as we have throughout the ages?
Yeah, but I think what has been determined is that the central nervous system does need it. You can survive without it, but you can certainly have better visual perception. You can have much better development of your brain when you have these. And so we survived as a species without them, but I think we thrive more when we have them.
Are you aware of a controlled study in which they took the group of kids without and the group of kids who were given DHA when they were young to see how they do in their test scores and their, what that might be?
I don't know. I know they've done it for vision for sure. And I think who did that with the and I have to look at the studies again, but I remember looking at those studies. Now that I think of it, it was from the formula companies. formula companies were adding this back in and saying, but convincing people that this is actually, there was reason to do that.
Was that a good advertising ability to sell more of their product because you don't get that in breast milk? I'm just trying to play the devil's advocate here a little bit.
Yeah. No, you do get some of that in breast milk. I think what the issue is that formulas didn't have any, that mother's milk did have some, but formula had zero.
Oh.
And so what they're showing was that the difference between not having it and having it was significant in terms of vision and IQ. Is what the
But if it's in breast milk, and that's the
Yes.
food, and you're breastfeeding is fine.
Yeah.
If you're not, then maybe the supplementation. I'm just,
Yeah. And also, thousands of years ago, what did we do after breastfeeding? How did we get that? How did we get
yeah.
Fish of it.
Yeah,
It's fish.
but that's not all.
But there's a lot of populations that are nowhere near.
Yeah, well, I think, we kind of refined our diet and we understand now. Most people don't, but now we're starting to all understand what really makes the brain thrive, what makes the life thrive and healthy for much longer. We're living so much longer than we did thousands of years ago that so I think it makes a difference. Yeah.
Would DHA help dementia, or would lack of DHA contribute to dementia later on in life?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know that I have that information. DHA and dementia. Yeah, I don't know. Scott, will you look in open evidence and put in dementia and DHA, see what it says. We'll come back to you in a second. Thanks, Scott. Yeah, so he's looking like.
I just thought of it when you were talking about developing the brain and
Yeah,
as a kid.
of course, it's a great question. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's a great question. Yeah. Excellent. All right. And we talked about baby-led weaning earlier on. It seems to be a popular video, so I would like to show that because I remember one time not showing him, everyone was saying, hey, we didn't show the full video about baby-led weaning. So I was going to show the next one is video 3, and we'll end this at 3 minutes and 28 seconds, okay? All right, thanks.
What you want to do is see.
People online can hear the DHA. So DHA, it's mostly you look at supplements, but you can look at different ways to get it. So there are observational studies that show that there's an association between people with higher blood DHA levels and more DHA rich foods in their diet, and a 20% risk reduction in developing dementia later in life. And so with problems with observational studies and associations is you don't know what association doesn't necessarily equal causation. So you don't necessarily know. So because you could say, well, people that have higher blood levels of DHA maybe eat more, more certain types of foods. So more, walnuts, nuts and seeds, flax seeds, maybe fish. They have just maybe they exercise more, maybe they overall had a healthier diet, but it wasn't over 100,000 patients over a period of time that association was there. But then when they actually put it to the test with a randomized trial for people that already had dementia, there was no benefit. And so I guess the lesson is, yes, try to get DHA rich foods in your diet, whether that's the short chain fatty acids like ALA, which is just flax seeds, chia seeds, walnuts. Maybe if you are going to be doing fish once in a while for people, but then you have to worry about all the pollutants and everything else that's in it, the saturated fat, the cholesterol, all that stuff. So, but definitely by just taking a supplement, it's not likely going to prevent dementia. And so I think it has more to do with your overall diet and trying to get plenty of omega-3s in your diet, target that. And then of course, it's easier to prevent a disease than to cure a disease once you have it. So if you have, already have dementia, then supplements haven't been shown to do anything. So
thanks. Well, yeah, I think, when I think about this, making these changes in a child's diet to make them, because really you're at an inflection point when you have a new parent coming in. They're suddenly interested in how do we raise this child as healthy as it can be. And I saw a new baby today, and I was thinking about this whole thing about, well, how do you? It's really this inflection point that you can really jump on and get the parents on board. And so today I had a 2-week-old baby in the clinic, and I was talking to him about all the different lifestyle issues, introducing those, because this is the time. There's no right time to wait and introduce it. It's really you gotta talk about giving your body what it needs right from the start. And whether that's regular movement and, obviously when they're 2 weeks old, they're not going to be running around, but certainly it's the foods and the breastfeeding then, but it's not too long they're going to be eating foods. And I really want to make this whole change of lifestyle for people to be a family change. It's not like an individual, it's not like one person in the family has to do this. It really isn't it's the whole family doing it. And there's a point of connection with the whole family doing it. Hey, we're all changing our lifestyle to make it better for us. And it really has an effect on the entire family when it's done in unity. If one person's like, oh, I've eaten Captain Crunch all my life, I'm not gonna stop now. It's hard to combat that if you've got one person who's resistant, but I'll blame it on the fathers again because it's those Captain Crunch fathers. Um, yeah, but you can see how beautiful this video is in terms of just how it really promotes this autonomy for kids, how they can really reach out and enjoy the food themselves. Yeah, the downside is you do get a little bit more of the gagging, but this is not choking. This is not choking. This is absolutely protective. And what you find is that these kids, this won't last for very long. They learn pretty quickly how to handle those foods. And
Well, how do you know the difference between gagging and choking?
yes, how do you know the difference between gagging and choking? Well, the big thing is that choking is they stop passing air. They don't, so they won't cough. Big thing is coughing, and then gagging. They'll do this thing where they're gagging, but they're still breathing. They're kind of coughing. They look get comfortable. They look like they're, their eyes get watery, their face gets a little red and stuff. But choking is a different beast. It looks totally different. They don't have that same look. They get this incredible. Their eyes get very wide open, and they absolutely can't pass any air at all. So they're not coughing. The coughing is a good thing. And then, this whole process is really good for those kids. So, you can't tell a family to feed their child and not let them be prepared to deal with gagging, because gagging is scary. Sometimes allow parents come in just because, oh my gosh, no one told them about gagging. Their family doctor or something told them to feed their child, and they gag to break out. And so if you talk about it ahead of time, so I literally pull out the video and I'll show them that just the gagging section. I said, this is good stuff. This is what your baby needs to do to learn how to protect their airway. So that does help. And then when they see
muscular exercise.
yeah, when they see it in person, then they're not freaking out at all. They're like, oh, that's that good stuff that he was talking about. Yeah, it's totally different. It changed the whole mindset of what that is all about. So, and I wanted to also talk about the most prevalent disease in the world. What is the most prevalent disease in the world? Does anyone know?
Measles.
No. It's not heart disease. It's not measles. It's not well, it is an infectious disease. It's tooth decay. The most common disease in the world. So I want to show you one video. We're going to wrap up here really soon. I thought we'd wrap up soon.
I thought you were talking about kids.
Oh yeah, no, but yeah, with kids, no, measles is not that common. And in other countries it may be, but it's been eradicated in a lot of places, or calmed down to a small portion because we have such a good vaccine for it. So around the world, there's efforts to eradicate things. We eradicated smallpox, but measles is on the list to be eradicated at some point. It is so darn contagious. It's a scary disease. We've had this horrible outbreak in the United States and Texas that then kind of spread all over different places. But let's watch this tooth decay one.
Dental cavities may be humanity's most prevalent disease, affecting 35% of the global population. The average number of decayed, missing, and filled teeth has been estimated at more than 2 by age 12. In the United States, the oral health of our elderly may also be in a state of decay, with 1/4 of elderly persons missing all their teeth. And an estimated $100 billion of all that is due to sugar. Sugar consumption is considered the one and only cause of cavities. Though often referred to as a multifactorial condition, the other factors, the bacteria, the plaque, the saliva, the brushing, the flossing, appear to just have mitigating influences. All the other factors simply modify the speed speed by which sugar causes cavities. Without sugars, the chain of causation is broken and the disease does not occur. We might not even need all that stuff if we could just get rid of added sugar. Studies dating back decades ago show that in countries where sugar consumption was very low, dental cavities was almost non-existent, and new analyses show that the lifelong burden of cavities increases as sugar intake increases from zero. The most comprehensive national data are from Japan, before, during, and after World War II, where the incidence of cavities tracked per capita sugar intake as it dropped from about 8% of calories down to just 0.1%, less than a teaspoon a week, before rebounding to about 14%. Such studies show that cavities continued to occur even when sugar intake comprised only 2 to 3% of caloric intake. Given that more extensive disease in adults doesn't appear to manifest if sugar intakes are limited to less than 3% of caloric intake, a public health goal to limit sugar intake to below 3% has been recommended. This led to the suggestion that traffic light labels mark anything above 2.5% added sugars as high. That would make even comparatively low-sugar breakfast cereals such as Cheerios red light foods. The recommended 3% cap on total daily intake of added sugars wouldn't even allow for a single average serving for young children of any of the top 10 breakfast cereals most heavily advertised to them. Obviously, soda is off the table. One can has nearly 2 days' worth. The American Academy of Pediatric Dentistry adopted the more pragmatic goal, recommending sugar intake stay below 5% for children and adolescents, matching to the World Health Organization's conditional recommendations for both children and adults. That's about where sugar dropped to in Iraq when they were under sanctions, and it cut cavity rates in half within just a few years. Of course, the sanctions may have cut other things, like children's lives, short, though that was apparently fake news, a consequence of government manipulation. Anyway, if we were really interested in minimizing disease, the ideal goal would be to drop the intake of free sugars to zero, meaning added sugars. They're not talking about sugars naturally found in breast milk or the intrinsic sugars found in fruit. But when it comes to added sugars, there does not seem to be a threshold for sugar intake below which there are no adverse effects. An exponential increase in cavity rates for sugar intakes even starting as low as 1%. Yeah, maybe we could get rid of cavities if there was no sugar in the diet, wrote a Kellogg's-funded researcher. This ideal is impractical. The dictatorial use of foods friendly to the teeth might promote dietary celibacy, not acceptable to all individuals. Instead of recommending draconian reductions in sugar intake, the sugar industry responded, attention would be better focused on fluoride toothpaste. That's the perfect metaphor for medicine's approach to lifestyle diseases in general. Why treat the cause when you can just treat the consequences, right? Like, why eat healthier to prevent and treat heart disease when we have all these statins and stents?
They were seen as a thing of affluence back in the day, and they still are, but now they're just ubiquitous. Everywhere you look, there's just added sugars, added sugars, added sugars. Yeah.
3 years after college, I was a social worker in the Appalachian Mountains.
Yeah.
And at the time, it was the seventh poorest county in the nation.
Yeah.
And all the kids drank Coke. And
yeah.
I don't know where they got the money to buy. Well, there was a store that I think to buy the Coke, but it just was amazing to see these kids just slugging Coke or Pepsi or whatever.
Yeah.
And yet it was so poverty stricken. I don't know how they afforded it, but
Yeah.
somehow they managed it. I guess maybe because it was cheaper than milk. I don't know.
The sugar industry is subsidized by the government.
Yeah.
And so we have been flooded with sugar because of that. Yeah, it's
Is it interesting? I think of, back in the day, like 200 years ago, sugar was definitely a disease, a substance of affluence, right? You couldn't just find easy sources of sugar anymore, but now it's totally different. When I went to Kenya and went to the various villages there where my wife has family members, it just the teeth in people, these are people who have never seen a dentist in their lives. And their teeth are immaculate and beautiful and just white as can be. And yeah, they don't they they may brush or whatever, but traditionally they didn't, or they used twigs from certain trees to clean their teeth. That had kind of some medicinal aspect to it. But you look at my clinic in Springfield, and oh my, I get away, to think it's just horrendous. There's just like caves, these teeth. Some of the teeth are so rotted out, there's no tooth structure there. It's just like all the way to the gum line. And others are, like caves. They're not just like little cavities that you can't see old dentists because those kind of cavities. That's what I was used to. And these are just it's horrible. And then they get these abscesses, which are big infections coming from the tooth.
What does it get into your blood, the bacteria?
Yeah, yes, and just tooth decay itself, these bacteria get in your bloodstream and they can actually affect your heart and cause chronic inflammation. It causes all kinds of things. So it can actually be very wearing on your body, including your heart. But because of all the chronic inflammation that goes on for decades and decades and decades, you get you get a very difficult time that this chronic inflammation. So but I was saying in the villages, there wasn't this. They didn't have that. They didn't see dentists, yet they didn't. They had immaculate teeth, and they ate regular foods. There was no like sugar added and stuff. And I'm sure there's more and more of that, especially in the bigger cities where you've got more westernization. Anyway, that's kind of what I was thinking. What any other thoughts before we wrap up? Anything else that you guys are thinking of? Well, thank you for sticking with it. Nice to have a small group. We did have a little group online too, right?
Yeah, we got 4, I think.
Yeah. All right.
Hi, y'all online.
Hi, y'all.
Yeah.
All right. Well, today,
I think also people who are like over 60, we grew up, when I think about. I just, I think about, my mother grew up in North Dakota, so it was meat and potatoes, and the only vegetables she liked was asparagus.
Yeah.
It was asparagus.
But it was more basic food.
Yeah.
Yeah. My ancestors, I have some ancestors from North Dakota as well.
Right.
I have some ancestors from North Dakota as well. Yeah.
Who knows?
That's right.
Neither of you left. Thanks, guys. Neither of you left a grave shirt in the bathroom, did you?
No.
Okay. Yeah.